Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Julie Hubert. She's the president and CEO at Workland. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be on your show. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm actually quite fascinated by what you guys are doing, but maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Perfect. So I grew up, I half grew up in Quebec. So I was born and raised half my life in Quebec.
Okay.
And then I spent the other half of my life and teenage years in Toronto, which is why I have this weird French and English accent that usually people will tell me. Basically afterwards, I came back to Montreal to do my school, my university.
Okay.
So went to Concordia here in Montreal, and then McGill University to finish my business and marketing studies before heading out to the workforce.
So what made you want to go and get your business MBA and marketing in university?
Well, actually, it's a fluke that I ended up in business studies. When I was here in Quebec, we have a pre-university degree that we must do, which is our version of college, but you need it to go to the university.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was in sciences, and heading into like a more scientific training, and I really didn't like it, and I kind of didn't know what to do. And a couple of my friends were in business, and I said, hey, what the hell? I'm going to try it. And I ended up loving it, and loving especially marketing. I'm a little bit artistic, on a certain aspects of how I like to work. So,
sure.
And then I just continued on and on until I got all the diplomas I could. And then, thinking about teaching, because that's all I have left. Everything's been studied.
Okay, interesting. So you get out of university. Walk me through your career up until Workland.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't. I kind of worked all the way through my studies.
Okay.
So I had a different job while I was going to school,
Okay.
and I just thought it was so awesome to be able to learn things and then apply it to my different jobs, and to really get some concrete examples of what I was learning.
Okay.
So again, I most of my bachelor's studies were done part-time. So was my MBA. And I went straight into the pharmaceutical industry as a product manager. So I kind of worked my way up the marketing ladder. Subsequently, I went into the pulp and paper industry, again, going higher than I had before into, larger products, covering America instead of just, local products, doing
Right.
some pretty interesting things in terms of product and brand management. And then I ended up in one of the coolest jobs ever, working for Yoplait and the yogurts, and then having just so much financial resources to do really, really cool stuff and develop products.
Okay.
And after I had basically done everything you could think of in marketing and having reached, a higher, a director level position, I just decided I wanted to, do what I had originally thought I would do, which was be an entrepreneur. So I ended up quitting my job when I found the right project, which was Workland. And the story kind of started there.
Okay. Very cool. So how did Workland come to be, and what exactly do you guys do?
Okay, well, there's a cute little story of how we came to be, and I like to talk about it because people like those haha moments,
Sure.
where you're kind of struck by lightning. And I had always been a career-oriented person, going from company to company, growing in responsibilities and level and salary. So as I had started, having done everything and that I could in the present job, in my last, corporate job, I said, what, I'll do what people do, what I've always done. I'm going to go look for a job. And I just spent, 6 months in what I like to call hell, job searching, sending CVs, getting pulled into like hundreds of interviews and phone calls and psychometric testing. And funnily enough, every single time I got so close to the end of the race and something happened, either a difference in salary, a difference in conditions, another person, with a different background. Anyways, every single process that I endured during those 6 months ended up not working out.
Okay.
And one night, kind of depressed and saying, oh my God, what's wrong with the world? I ended up watching Jerry Maguire, and this is a true story.
No, that's awesome.
And I just said, oh my God. I mean, this is what people need. Candidates need this. I would need this. I would need an agent. And oh my God, what if I could bring technology to be able to do that agent job for everybody and to automate this matching process, which is just not working. And I was just struck by lightning. And everybody in my family and my workplace, like everybody thought I was crazy because I was from marketing and
Sure.
I was talking about high-tech stuff and HR, two fields I had never worked in. But I was so passionate for the problem that I didn't care. I said, I'm going to figure it out. And I did actually, since I'm still talking about it.
Sure. So you guys have been around almost 8 years. Is that correct?
Yep, almost 8 years, coming soon. So we started very humbly.
Sure.
Again, like I mentioned, I was starting it from scratch, really going from the idea of automating the matching system.
Right.
And started on my kitchen table as a one-person employee, and then, a little co-working, then a couple consultants working with me. And it took, because the startup ecosystem back in 2011, 12, it was messy. You didn't know where to go. There was no funds. So it took a little bit less time than if I would start a company from scratch today, because, there's really a lot of interesting programs in place.
Sure.
So we ended up launching the first version of our system 2 years later after launch.
Okay.
And it was incredible because it was really a technology. It was like a dating site for work where basically, employees or candidates would come fill in their information in a lot of detail. So we would collect a lot of detail on what you want, what you don't want, who you are, what you can do. And on the other side, the employer would do the same. And there was an automated match that would be between parties, but candidates couldn't apply to positions. You had to match to be put into relationship with the other party.
Okay.
And candidates thought it was like the coolest thing. It was really, back then, super revolutionary. Like no one was talking about any sort of match in the recruitment field. And the HR was just not ready for that kind of disrupting idea.
Sure.
So it was a challenging time, and it was kind of, that dual market reality where you need candidates, but you need employers. And if you don't have the other, it kind of doesn't work as well. So we did a couple pivots. We did a lot of service to be able to learn and grow with our customers and implement and involve the technology.
Okay.
And the system that we have today is completely different than this first version. And it's really a system that uses the full power of AI to be able not only to find and do these huge outreach campaigns to candidates locally, nationally, internationally. And then once the inflow of candidates come in, then that's where we use the AI to really match. So to automate the pre-qualification. So all the what I want, what I don't want, what I can do, what I can offer. And then we added a second level, which is a psychometric match. So we're looking at all the spheres in relationship to the candidate, doing the same thing on the company side, so that really when we say it's a good match, it's not just based on 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10 criteria. In certain cases, it's hundreds of data points that come together to say this is a great match, and it's a great opportunity to invest your time. And again, it goes back to my experience of me wasting my time with the wrong opportunities, with the wrong company. The goal of the system is to avoid this. And once you have a match, then you know you should invest your time. And what we also push a lot is the fact that we want to make sure that recruiters are more inclusive, and to reduce the hiring biases that kind of naturally flow in the human recruitment process. So, the system gives equal opportunity to all, whether you come from one country or another, whether you're a man or woman or an older person. All these data points don't come into to be considered in the match, so that we're really helping everybody have equal opportunity.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're right. I think as recruiting good talent becomes more and more challenging, I think having a system like what you guys are building makes a lot of sense. At least personally, in my experience, even in the little bit of time I've had to try to recruit people for jobs at the companies I've worked for in the past.
Yes, and what's exciting is technology in probably like the last 12 to 18 months has really, really come through the HR world. Okay. It wasn't like that before. People thought I was like some alien from another planet when I talked about automation. And there's a lot of talk about AI now, but nobody wanted to hear about AI 3 years ago. I can tell you that.
Sure.
But, all this opening to the world of tech in HR is there. So that's really positive. On the other side, there's this inflow of technologies, of solutions who offer part of the solution, but temporarily, it's creating chaos. So recruiters and companies, they kind of don't know where to turn. Which technology should I use? Where's my candidates? How do I get there? So I foresee it's going to continue being a little bit chaotic, but ultimately, I foresee that within the next 2 years, things are going to consolidate, stabilize, and we're going to be much more efficient, for both sides of the equation. So it's really an amazing industry to be in right now.
Yeah, it is interesting because traditionally it seems to be, well, I guess kind of like anything else. It's a numbers game for companies trying to recruit, right? And you don't know if the next person you reach out to is going to be a fit. I also think sometimes, just speaking from my own personal experience, obviously some recruiters are better than others, and sometimes they're not even looking really at your profile. It's one keyword matches on your LinkedIn profile and they're sending you an email and they didn't even really look into you at all, right? And I had one experience once where a recruiter reached out to me and they were trying to sell me on why I should move to the city that I was born and raised in. And it was like, you clearly didn't even look at my profile, right? And so I get that's like a worst case example, but it can be really tricky. So I'm curious to dive a lot deeper into how do you leverage AI and what exactly is the stuff that you guys do? Because I guess, how does Atlas work with Workland and how does AI fit into all of that stuff?
That's a big question with multiple answers. If I don't answer everything, please tell me. Okay. I'm going to try to
Sure.
be as concise as possible. So the first point that you bring is that it's a numbers game. I would also say that recruitment is also a digital marketing and sales game as well. So you've got the marketing, you've got the sales to be able to sell candidates on the opportunities. Obviously, the right way, not the way you describe. Although I hear hundreds of examples like that every week of things that just shouldn't be, and I think that's going to continue for still a short while. But the numbers is something important, and it does connect also to the marketing side, because as you're investing in the technology, in the digital campaigns, you need to see what works, what doesn't work, and all that is also new. Both marketing and, looking at the metrics is new to the HR function. So, by the time they kind of learn, it's going to take some time for them to become comfortable. and to, make sure that these campaigns become more and more effective. So that's probably why we see still a lot of things that aren't working as they should. Again, I anticipate, as a very optimistic person, things, market corrections and a lot of progressions as that specific market kind of gets a hang of the technologies that they have in their hands. Second, our system, the way it functions maybe differently from other systems is, again, we are a candidate-driven company from the start.
Okay.
Told you my story, and it was really to make it so that, candidates and their well-being was at the heart of everything we developed. Okay. In terms of technology or in terms of, service when we had to do service. Obviously, the company is also our client, and we want the well-being of the company, because if we match them with the right candidate, well, the employee will be happy, and then, a happy employee is productive, and, everybody's happy in the equation. But I think, most companies are taking a lot of the side of the company and overlooking a lot of the candidate experience still today. In most sites, to apply, it's long, it's lengthy, it's complicated, and you don't get any feedback. So I think there's a lot of work, and we spend a lot of time developing our technologies so that we can bring to candidates things that they've been calling for the last years, like automatically, keeping them in the loop as they progress through the HR funnel, letting them know when a position is closed so that they don't, continue hoping that they'll get feedback. So small examples of what we're doing on the tech front to make sure that the candidate is his well-being is taken into account. We try the onboarding. We try to make it, a little bit more fun and, less lengthy. So if, a candidate doesn't have time, that we're able to help them very, very quickly. And then, when they have time to spend more time giving us information, then we can do that after. Now, at the core of the matching system and what we have now, but what we're also working towards is really to make sure that, as AI is a growing field, and most companies that are working in AI are also working to make this intelligence grow and learn, and just get better and better. That's the goal, because it's a new field anyways for a lot of companies. Sure. So what we want to make sure, and I alluded to it earlier, is as we're programming and programming an intelligence that, in time would reprogram itself, getting more data, being more performant in the match, we need to make sure that we're not excluding people. And that's the big problem with a lot of the technologies out there, the recruitment technologies that are there and that, companies have, is that a lot of the matching is based on keywords. Okay. So if you, for example, don't really know, you haven't looked for a job in 10 years, so you're not really aware of how to do a CV. You do your CV, but hey, you forget the keywords of the most of the recruitment technologies. Well, you're probably going to be excluded automatically, but maybe you are the perfect candidate for that position. Interesting. And that's how most systems work, is that they filter via keyword. And I was reading an article just last week where by 75% of candidates are just automatically filtered out of these systems based on keywords, and that actually people, if they take enough time, can invest some time and resource in working their CV to be able to bypass the auto filter, which, okay, it's good. Okay, fine. You get on top of the pile, but it's like overlooking the heart of the problem, which is a matching system that clearly isn't performant, doesn't, get companies to go further in terms of what they're doing to avoid those biases, to be more inclusive in their recruitment practices. And that's where we're working to make sure that as we filter candidates, we're filtering really for the candidate. So if I have somebody who's not a match, well, technically, if I'm transparent, I should be able to show him or her the report and say, hey, you know what, this is why you're not a match. And, if I'm doing my job correctly, he or she should say, oh, yes, I understand. And it's true, and that's clearly not what's happening on the market with the existing technologies. And that's what we want to do. just because we take inclusivity very, very to heart. We're a highly diversified company. We've been right from the start, and it probably comes from the fact that I lived in beautiful Toronto, and it is very, very, very diverse and multicultural city. So, we want to make sure everybody has equal opportunity. And in a talent shortage, which is like we're in a world crisis for talent, especially in fields like IT and AI, everybody's looking for those specialists. You need to be inclusive. You need to be able to consider and be open to looking at potentially hiring somebody from abroad. But, you can't be traveling, to Brazil or to France or to another country, to recruit every week. So, the goal of technology is to bring that power to connect and match efficiently with the right talent, right into the hands of the recruiters sitting in their office. And that's the heart of the problem that we're tackling, and using, the core technology that we've developed through the years to tackle those big scalable problems, and to do that, working with companies, working with governments, working with the candidates to really make that wheel turn much more efficiently than it's turning right now.
No, it's interesting. So just so I'm clear, how does Atlas tie into this, or is it totally separate?
No, Atlas is the technology. So it is the platform where all the magic I described happen.
Okay, gotcha.
So, let's say you're a person in a company, you're a recruiter.
Yeah.
Well, you'll go post your positions in the platform. You'll select the network that you want it to be automatically diffused on. You can connect different countries. If ever you're looking at international recruitment, you connect social media. And then the incoming talent will be captured and filtered through the platform. So everything happens in the system, as opposed to being, working with separate applications. And Atlas is the technology that we use, to architect solutions to problems. Again, using the same system, but maybe adding features, modifying certain things, bringing in something that we didn't have before, adding a complementary partner that makes sense. For example, we're integrated with back checks, so we can automatically order the back checks if a company wants to do that. So it's really so that, recruiters don't have to leave the platform, and they have everything they need to complete and to be as efficient as possible on the platform. And on the other side, so that the candidate has a great experience. It's easy to come apply, and then it's easy to modify, upload your documents. So, and the goal is really to have that well-being of both parties through the technology.
Okay. So how do you guys leverage social media in the platform?
We are connected directly through social media. So as you mentioned, you were approached, via social media by a human recruiter.
Yeah.
So we connect on the different platforms to automate a portion of the work of the recruiters who identify profiles, but instead of bugging them and poking them on social media, they can do it in a less time costly way, less annoying way on the candidate side, just, bringing potential opportunities to the eyes of the candidates who afterwards can decide whether or not they want to embark and continue with the opportunity. So social media is key for us. And that's also where we do our mass communications, the different campaigns we do for different companies or for ourselves. So really, I think social media is changing the name of the game, and it's opening up so much opportunity on the candidate side, but it's also temporarily making it almost harder for people to find work because everybody's kind of scattered. And, it's all, things are done by fluke. So let's say, again, you're looking for a job tomorrow and you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're there. It's impossible for you at one point to know the perfect job for you or the perfect 5 jobs. It's impossible. There's so many factors that come into play that it's impossible. You can go on job boards, you can see what's there, but there's probably hundreds of positions that aren't posted. And maybe, in a couple of weeks, you won't be looking. There'll be some that will come in and out. So anyways, like I was saying, social media is great. I think by connecting with different technologies such as ours or others, I think it'll become much, much more efficient for both sides to leverage social media in a much more efficient way, because basically that's where everybody is, all the talent's there.
Sure. So I'm curious though, it seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that all the job seeker nowadays seems to spend a lot more time researching companies and trying to align and their values with a company before they even apply. And so it seems to me that less and less people are just randomly blasting their resume or CV out. They're actually spending quite a bit of time doing their research and homework on the companies they apply to. Therefore, they apply to less companies. Have you found that, or what are your thoughts around that?
Again, for very positively, the market has changed. We used to be in what we call an employer-powered market. So
Right.
The employers had all the power. People were lucky to get an interview, and then you would walk in the interview all stressed and shaking because there was 150 people
Sure.
that wanted the job. So that's kind of how it was. That's why marketing wasn't really an issue. Sales, hey, no, you're lucky to be here. But because we're in a talent shortage, it's become a very, very candidate-driven market. And, talented people who have good CVs and great profiles and personalities, really have a lot more power in their hands. So yes, indeed, they are researching companies, and you know what? They should. And, I always tell people who are either, not happy at work or considering a job, it's like, look at your passion, look at who you are, what you like to do, all that, and then connect, what's the industries that make sense for me? What are the types of companies in these industries? Is it big companies I like? Is it smaller? Is it kind of in the middle? And it's so necessary to do this assessment before you start looking, because then you end up kind of like me all those years back, throwing CVs around, kind of, urgently trying to get a job, but never ending up in the right processes. So it's going on. It's going to continue to go on. And also the younger generations, it's not only about work. It's not only about salary and what it used to be. I've seen with the many that I've hired, they want challenges. They want, great company cultures. They want to be, inspired and like the product. So it's going to continue to go in that way, making on the flip side it much harder for companies who maybe for a position used to get 200 CVs, and then today sometimes they get none, sometimes they get only a couple, which is why there's such a growth in the usage of social media to approach people directly, because these people are no longer knocking at their doors as they used to be.
Interesting. So I'm curious then, how does a company use your platform? I know they get matched, but how do they make their profile more appealing than their competitors?
They got to spend time. The first thing isn't even technology.
Okay.
It's about, like I said, it's about marketing and image, which is ironic because, as I was mentioning, I studied and worked, over a decade in marketing, and it comes creeping back to me as a, useless, a non-useless function that, is really up and coming. So it's really to take some time, invest some time in developing what they call the employer branding, and making sure that they're putting out their authentic values and to reflect. It's not like, that marketing scam where you make the burger look better than it is. You really gotta be authentic. And if these are your 5 values, but it's only on the wall, nobody feels it. That's not what you've got to put out there, because even if you get the candidate to apply, and to buy what you're saying, they're going to know that it's not true and it's not going to last. And that's not what companies want. So ultimately, transparency, authenticity needs to be done. And that's more of a creative portion of the work. So as a step one, at all key contact points, the story has to be the same. It has to be authentic, and it has to be enticing for candidates to say, hey, cool, I am interested in this company. The other things is, there's cool ways to make some noise right now through video content and multimedia, still again today. And I can't believe it's still as prominent as it is, that boring text job description with the 15 some bullet points, black and white, it's overdue. It's overdue to turn that into a multimedia experience. But again, it goes with the HR function that's under a revolution and not really comfortable with, it is tech, but it's like marketing tech, but they have a learning curve. But I do see that that's going to change it. And that's what's going to make the difference. Seeing through video or virtual reality, how does it look in the company? Seeing maybe the founder talk, hey, I like her, I like him, I like what she's saying, or, I'm enticed to find out more. So that's really step one. And that's, through our platform, we're able to build with companies these multimedia portals so they can have really the right messages to put out there. Then where the whole matching process starts once we have the candidates that come in, it's really, for the recruiter, because one of the things I found out through the many years, we used to have a standard match. So it was, everybody was matched the same way. Every candidate, every recruiter, it's same questions, both sides, the big, algorithm running in behind. But what we found is that each recruiter has a different way of seeing things. And we saw that as we were servicing companies. Every recruiter, sometimes same recruiter, maybe two separate, processes. The person wasn't acting the same way or filtering the same way or, wanting the same thing. So we really have allowed through our tool, the recruiter to input his or her decision-making process and to replicate it automatically and apply it subsequently, which is revolutionary because, hey, we're really far away from the keyword. We're far further away from a standard out of the box, but, automated, algorithm rolling. We're really into customized AI, whereby when the recruiter looks at the results, it's not out of the box. It really reflects what that person would have done. And again, it's about transparency. When they look at the report of people that were excluded, they have to say, okay, I understand why that person was excluded because I know I would have made that decision. So that's really where the magic happens by automating, again, AI algorithms. It's all about automating decision-making and complex decision-making. And although it does look simple, a recruiter is looking at a CV, taking that 1 minute to kind of scan, looking at different data points. There's all these decisions that are coming in their heads that makes it, okay, I'm going to save this CV, or no, I'm going to reject this CV. And that's what our map is doing in the background, to be able to do that, but without the human intervention. So as not to, make their jobs go away, but just make their jobs much more fun because they can concentrate on the human factor, the in-person interviews or the Skype interviews, but also working on all the marketing stuff that they got to learn. And I was talking to someone and I said, you know what? Yes, your job's going to change. And it was a director in HR. I said, your job's going to change. But I said, do you prefer clicking 100 CVs or walking into, a big ad agency because you're about to see what your new campaign outreach campaign is going to look like with all the, ad executives? So he's like, yeah, you have a point. You have a point. So it's really disrupting how they do work. It's not isolated. All of the workforce, many positions are going to be affected by automation. in the next 10 years. And it's how we're able to advance, even when things are confusing, and companies got to contribute to this by allowing change to come in, by giving opportunities to tech companies who come maybe with crazy ideas, but maybe in 2 years, those ideas are not going to be so crazy, and everybody's got to work together. So hopefully I answered your question.
No, it's interesting, right? Because the thing that I find, I'm curious to get your thoughts, because there's a lot of people that are scared that AI is going to take out tons of jobs and we're all going to be just unemployed. But what I think, and you can tell me what you've seen, is it will take away some of the simpler tasks, probably the boring tasks that people don't like doing, and you will just be doing different things in a few years. And I don't really think it's going to wipe out. It probably will wipe out certain jobs, but I think as long as people are willing to learn and adapt, like we've had to do as a civilization since the beginning of time, you should be fine. Have you kind of found that, or what are your thoughts around that?
I have lots of thought about what you just said, because for me, it's one of the most interesting topics right now.
Sure.
So latest data that I looked at, but it's constantly moving, is that they expect within the next decade that 40% of the jobs will have been automated. And many, many companies, again, they're working on automation. Short term, it's probably creating more jobs than it's replacing jobs. So,
sure.
Short term, we're all okay. But, I do believe that there's probably going to be that, a 40, 50% of jobs that will be automated in the next decade or so. Like, it might take a couple more years. But it's not all jobs that are likely to be automated or automatable, if you may, because, when it is repetitive, when you can do a mathematical equation with your job, you're probably in a high risk job, something repetitive,
sure.
Something, that you can see and imagine, a machine or a system doing, definitely. And oddly enough, I was traveling, recently, and I really lived it, or at least I was conscious of it for the first time, how the world's going to change.
Okay.
We were at the airport. I had never been checked by a machine, like without any, lovely lady welcoming me, checking my passport. I had never done that. So I talked to a box to check myself at the airport.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh my God, no people intervention. And I could see how that job just got rid of, right? And then,
Sure.
on the same trip, we're in a little place and there's a karaoke. And before, there was always the karaoke guy. And at this time, the karaoke guy was a machine, and everybody went to the machine. There was no human intervention. And then I turn around, and at the bar, there's this really high tech, order your drink, and this arm making the drink. And I'm like, whoa.
Sure.
And that is what the future is going to look like. And it is cool and scary, but the really reassuring thing is that within the next decade, again, they anticipate that 85% of the jobs of 10 years from now, they don't exist today.
Sure.
So it's not like we're just going to get rid of jobs. More jobs are going to be created. And the perfect example is the one I just mentioned. The fact that now they're looking for experts in HR and marketing, and they don't really exist because it's a completely new field. So there'll be more and more of this work, which will be interesting, and where people will have the most protection from job automation is where you need human creativity or the human impact to be able to realize that that's not automatable. As of today, when you meet it, you like a CV, you do all your automated pre-qualification, you see the psychometric test. Well, still there's just something about meeting the person and talking and saying, what, I have a good feeling about her, she, and to all those nonverbal cues and verbal cues. There's a lot of work that, can't be replaced. Doesn't mean it's not going to be replaced in 50 years, but, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But, for the probably 25 years to come, I see the world as being very exciting. And yes, to your point, people will have to be much more adaptable. Companies will have to be more adaptable, more flexible to say, hey, I'm looking for 10 people like this. They don't exist, or, the form that I want doesn't exist. I got to be flexible. Why don't I consider somebody who may not have all the baggage, but, invest in training and to be able to get to that point. And we're actually working on some pretty cool initiatives to be able to turn around talent and take talent that's, kind of outside the normal box, provide them with training and integration. And then we help them connect with companies. I believe that that's the future, to be able to do that as fast as possible.
Interesting. No, I agree with you. The other thing that I want to get your thoughts on is, it seems to me, and I think you're going to agree with this, that being able to almost use, or like creative problem solving skills are going to be almost really, really valuable, because it's the people that can try something, fail at it, try something, maybe it half works, maybe it fails again, but are willing to constantly try new things until something works and just not give up. Almost that kind of entrepreneurial mindset. And I think we need to change the word failure to be less negative. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with failing a bunch. Like, you talk to any successful entrepreneur that will honestly tell you what they went through. They fail numerous times in a day, right? And they keep trying something new. It's like, oh, this didn't work, I'm going to try this. This didn't work, I'm going to try that. Or this half worked, let's keep going in that direction, right? And I think that, to me, is going to be one of, if not the most important skill, I think, for the job of the future. And you can apply that to any industry across the board. Do you agree with that? Do you think I'm crazy to say that? Or somewhere in the middle?
No, I totally agree with you. For me, failure is part of the process. Failure, and it's a stupid word because there's so much negativity, around it. And oh my God, you can't be a failure. And I guess, I can't retrace how we got so obsessed with fearing failure.
Sure.
But, failure is learning. It's trying things. It's impossible to want to do big things that people have never done and not fail. It's impossible because there's no recipe, because you're always iterating. And what machines won't be able to replicate is this human spirit of not giving up. And it's not about, yes, they'll be able to roll programs over and over, but to say, okay, how can I tackle this differently? And, all that human potential, that human fire, I would say, can be replicated. And that's what the human fire is, what's going to continue to do magic and to reinvent things down the line. And that's not, in any case, not from my lifetime, going to be replaceable by a machine.
No, fair enough. I also think, too, people need to be willing to learn new things. And it doesn't have to be every day. Obviously, if you can, that's great. But I think that's going to be a big skill set, too, because you talk to some people that have been doing the same thing for decades and they're fine not really pushing the envelope or learning new things. And I think those are the people that have more potential to actually potentially get replaced. Do you agree with that? Like, replaced by technology, I should say.
For sure. And the world's turning so fast. There's changes being, as we're speaking, there's probably hundreds of changes that are going to impact us in a big way, that are getting pushed and that are going to be growing, within the next couple of weeks, months, and that we'll hear about.
Sure.
You need to be adaptable. You need to constantly learn, especially because jobs are going to change. And especially for people who see it coming, oh my God, you know what? My job is at risk of either really radically changing or being automated. You need to reinvent yourself. And what's beautiful is that there's no age to do that. And it's, I have a lot of people that have come to pass through my company. And, people in their 50s, sometimes people in their 60s, and they're going and they've just finished a new degree that they had never done before in computer science and programming. And I love that fire to say, you know what, the world's changing and I don't care, how old I am, I'm jumping in the bandwagon and I want to be part of this. So yes, it's a must. And, that's what's going to continue evolving society, is that everybody's, constantly striving to learn more and more. But not only to learn, but to use what they learn to contribute positively to the world.
Yeah, well, and I also think too, and I would put myself in this boat. Like when I was a lot younger, you don't realize how important experience is until you have experience in an industry. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, no. You kind of, and again, I've done the same thing too. I was in school or just out of school, and
sure,
I thought I had the answers. I had that young fire, ready to conquer the world like a bulldog. But you do find out that there's some lessons that you kind of have to, even if somebody would have taught them to me,
sure,
to have lived them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, sometimes it's the only way to learn. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of theory and things I learned in school that, have done me a lot of good through the years. But the big lessons, oh my God, I've really learned them on the job. And again, it's not about failing, it's about learning.
Yeah.
And if you do want to associate the failing world, it's, fail. I love when they say fail forward, so you can get up, fail fast, fail forward, get back on your feet, try something else. That's all it is. And to give yourself the right to fail, because it's part of the innovation process, and it's part of the learning process as well. So yes, I totally agree with you on that point.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But I guess a counterpoint to that, and I've seen it work, is sometimes it is easier to come into an industry that you haven't been in because you can see all the ridiculous red tape and craziness around that. And sometimes it's easier to be that kind of fresh mind and person coming into that industry. So what are your thoughts on the kind of the opposite of what we just talked about?
I think, it's funny because, I was a late entrepreneur. So I worked 12 years in corporate, and, I was very comfortable at the end, learning, but not learning as much as when I was young. And, when I made the switch into the HR tech, I realized how little I knew about certain things.
Sure.
And again, I was looking at it from a fresh eye. So new industry, and people would say, what do you, we've tried that. It's not going to work. What are you talking about? But because my eyes weren't tainted by the industry, it made me so much more creative at thinking that I could do basically everything I could. So on the flip side, it was positive, but where I reach your point is being a late entrepreneur and not having been an entrepreneur out of school. Sometimes I missed, I guess I'll call it naive, like the naiveness maybe, but like just when you're just fresh out of school, like you're ready to take on the world,
Sure.
you haven't lived the ups and downs.
Yeah, you're not jaded.
And being that you're not jaded, you're not disappointed, you don't know what's impossible. But after 12 years, I was ready to take on risk.
Sure.
But not in the same way as I would have straight out of school.
Sure.
So sometimes I miss that part of me. I said, God, if only I had been 20 when I did this, I would have like ripped it apart. But on the flip side, I probably would have made like huge mistakes.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think both work together. And what's interesting, especially, they talk a lot about, all the developments in AI and how much it can contribute positively to the world. Well, because it's a new field, around the table, you need all those different outlooks. You need the fresh out of school people. You need people that aren't in AI, reflecting on the on the problem. You need different cultures. You need men, women. You need all that diversity, because that's only the way to find those awesome solutions, those solutions that really change the world, because you're coming at it with different eyes and they all work together for the better.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think you're right. You need the most amount of perspectives from people from different backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, different parts of the world, different genders, different races, everything, right? And the more diversity you have at coming at a specific problem, I think the solution is better in the end. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. And one of the, I guess, key challenges of the future pertaining to recruitment automation is that worry, because again, I don't want to get too technical,
Sure.
but when you have the AI that's automating a decision-making process,
Sure.
and the human being at its core, whether we're not objective people, right? And there's sometimes subjectivity that comes into the equation, and there are recruitment biases,
Sure.
even on the people that, it's human.
Sure.
So when you work at bettering a replication of a biased decision-making model, you have to be careful, because with deep learning, machine learning that's coming, well, technically this intelligence would be able to reprogram itself to become more and more efficient. And if at the core you're introducing biases, well, then, you're unleashing automation that would be more likely to exclude certain people from certain cultures or age, whatever it is that the bias can be based on. And again, that's where I come in. If you have all these different perspectives around the table, that's much less likely to occur, because you have all those different viewpoints, and somebody's bound to put up their hand
Sure.
and say, hello,
No, I
So
I 100% agree. No, it's fascinating. But sadly, we're running out of time. So maybe let's close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys, and any other links you want to mention.
yeah, so people can come see what we're doing on workland.com. All the information is there. And I'm very big on LinkedIn. I like connecting with people. So people, that do want to find out more information can reach out to me. My name is Julie Hubert, so President, CEO of Workland, as you mentioned. And I'll gladly connect and answer people's questions about the future of work, the future of recruitment, and everything that we're doing to make sure it's a better world.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time into your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you. Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com. And keep building the future.